we're all doing separate streams, and I'm
It's
sure we're
like,
all navigating in our own way too.
yeah, it's, we need some sort of magical, easy multicaster.
We were just talking about that a moment ago. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I was talking about Rubicons and like what is the line, it's a personal decision that everyone has to make internally. And for
mhm,
some friends that I was talking to a couple of years ago, I told them like write it down. Like have on paper for yourself the decision or moment that is enough for you to go, okay, I need to actively begin protesting or resisting in
mhm.
whatever fashion that must be. Because, I mean, Gibson, I understand Gibson is the one who wrote Neuromancer, right? He was kind of the progenitor of a lot of like hyper dystopian tech based sci fi that we kind of deal with
Yes,
now, right? The
sort
father
Yeah.
of
of. But
cyberpunk.
but his
There's,
point, yeah, I mean that's true. But his point with that is sort of the opposite. That so the book that I'm reading is called Distrust That Particular Flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote that I mentioned where he's talking about the way that the preface to 1984 changed across the life of the author. And it
mhm.
starts out with this like we all watched the disaster march towards us, assuming someone else would do something about it, with reference to at that point with reference to World War I. But he keeps like updating it like again, right? Like it happened again, right?
Yeah.
And Gibson describes him as like he wrote he at the last one that he did before he died, he wrote um the only thing I have to add to my previous one is perhaps my epitaph, which will be I told you damn fools or something like that in italics. And he says the italics are mine. And then Gibson says the italics were indeed his. And I've grown to distrust that particular flavor of science fiction that's like constantly like, it's all about to happen. You have to do something about it because
Yeah.
everybody says that all the time across history, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of the two sides of the same coin that it's like, we all just like waiting for someone else to do something about it versus like, it's always a disaster. Like, this is the crisis of capitalism. Like, this is
Yeah.
the story of like modernism and modernity is like, it's always going to feel like that, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
that is, so like the thesis of cyberpunk is like, yeah, the world sucks. Who fucking cares? Let's use crime and be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Carve
mean,
out a niche.
every sort of disaster or dystopian future thing, or any story about the apocalypse, is actually a story about the current moment at all times,
Mm-hmm.
you
He
know,
says that too.
including revelations, including revelations,
Yeah.
like, just the oldest, any oldest, and Ragnarok, everything, you know. So,
Yeah, I think there's a like a merit and concern about how it produces this paralysis in a lot of people of like another book I often reference is Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher. One of the quotes that really stuck with me in that book was, "It's easier for people to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism," and that
mhm,
really cracked like
yeah,
one of the things that I would say is my prerogative is the whole reason I preached before a platform was built around me, so to speak. It's weird to me about how organically, like Liz and you and I, like discovered each other, and the things I was posting about was like I had been proselytizing on this soapbox, and a group formed around me, so it was very strange. But that responsibility I felt of like needing to contribute to get people to tackle the colonizer, the cop in their head, to say
mhm,
like even the ideas you're thinking about, because like that's where dreams, that's where concepts or the material realm of what occurs dies. That's where a lot of people go, well, I don't even need to try, it doesn't matter. And it's like the more you succumb or agree to that mentality that your individual actions have no contribution to the whole, or you can't produce that change, that reminds me, like that's a colonizer in my head that's telling me to give up. And
yes, yeah, exactly. This
and
is the
yeah,
side
yeah.
of a lot of this stuff, is that, you see all these terrible things on social media happening, and it's just you feel very powerless against it. And you're really not powerless against it, right? There are moments where one doesn't have the individual capability of stopping like a group of 14 armed men, right? Like, you know, and your culpability in that is very, very limited, you know,
Mhm.
to the participation in society, right? And at that moment, you can take that energy and use it, you know, for poesis. You can use it to get involved in something. But what I found is daily small involvements in the world to change it for the better, volunteering,
Mhm.
talking to somebody who's having a hard time, you know,
The
these
Gandalf thesis.
stuff, show up and be like, hey, let's try it. Okay, cool. Now you know how to do it. Great. All right. Like that kind of stuff, like every day does make a lot of change in the world.
Yeah.
A lot of change in the world.
It is. I admittedly get caught up in that wave of, it can feel overwhelming, right? Like I went to DEF CON last weekend, which was really fun.
Yeah.
Repping. First, I should also specify, like, I got recognized there for the first time, which was weird. And also I met a lot of content creators who are also really great. Shout out to Lori Wired for having easily the coolest business card I've ever seen. It's a
Oh
Pokemon
my
holographic
gosh.
card.
Oh my
Lori
God.
Wired is a fantastic reverse malware engineer,
Oh,
and basically just
Yeah.
reminds me that I know nothing about technology. Um,
yeah.
very, very humble, very nice person. Also met, I got my butcher's name, Chief GYK Geek, I think it's pronounced. They
What's it?
recognized you, Liz. I think you and them have gone back a bit as
Oh,
well.
yeah. I love it.
Yeah, we had good conversations about that. But when I get overwhelmed about that, like, sensation of how am I contributing to the whole, there was this really good talk that happened at DEF CON. It was called Thinking Like a Hacker in the Age of AI. It was presented by Richard Neural Cowboy Theme, I think was his name. The last name is a bit lost on me, so I apologize if I got that wrong. But one of the things he talked about, and this is something that, you know, we've brought up before about the nature of what is the future of humanity, basically what shape will it look like in its intersection with technology.
Yeah.
um there have been studies over and over again about, you know, one of the focuses of my field before I went hard into corporation and corporate structure versus the, like, pedagogical study was human interaction with technology. And there's been this slow progression of integration of, like, there were studies that the BBC released talking about how people would rather break a bone than lose their phone. And that created a physicality of how your body considered technology and it's integrated. And that's only going to happen more over time, you know? And that's part of the reason, like, even though I am admittedly a pessimist about the integration and synthesis of how we will use tools like AI like this,
Mhm.
I firmly believe it will be the future, whether we decide to participate in it or not, you know? So it's like understanding how to do it in a healthy manner and productive manner, and how to, instead of, you know, there's concepts like the industry of AI doesn't necessarily mean you locally using an AI is something you can't do or shouldn't do. There's ways to participate and protest in the industrial interactions versus, like, individual focus. And one example I was thinking of is after that talk where Peter talked about, I mean, sorry, Richard, his last name kind of reminds me of Peter Thiel is why. Um, Richard talked about how, you know,
Jump scare.
the version of, I know, Kid Escape, the version of us who will integrate with that will have to be a forward thinker of how to synthesize with it, you know? And it's to me, that individual responsibility boils down to what way are you balancing the use of this with your own personal enrichment as well. Like, if you were to tackle it at a systemic level, like you said, you get caught in that wash of um a lack of optimism, you know, this pessimism of it's impossible. Because climate change, for example, you think about how to adjust it, you're like, I'll eat less burgers because the methane industry could contribute to it. Oh wait, but even if I eat less burgers, the methane industry is, I mean, the beef industry is using a lot of methane because of the corn industry being what they feed them, and cows aren't built to eat corn, so maybe we get seaweed, but seaweed isn't viable. So there's this whole string you could follow, and it makes it feel like it's impossible, that you have to destroy everything that does exist. But I think people approach that as this radical mentality of it has to happen or is happening in real time all at once, instead of this, what can I do right now? What is my locus of control to be able to affect this? Yes, you can eat less cheeseburgers. Yes, you could start lobbying to use less corn for these, like, feeds that you have, get in touch with local farmers, things like that. So that progression, I think that's where AI has its most beneficial use, because I don't think we've talked about it here, but I'm certain you two have at least spoken about it. But hyper objects,
Hyper objects. Yeah.
Vsauce did a fantastic video on this. I just want to briefly explain as a layman.
Yeah.
I imagine you two have talked about it as well, but the way I understand hyper objects, and please correct me if I get this wrong, but my understanding is hyper objects are basically a conceptual idea, a thing, a concept, or an interaction that humans have difficulty discerning the large scale and long-term effects of. Climate change being a hyper object, like the stuff we do here could affect people in Tuvalu losing their land, right? And that concept of empathy from here to there, or even now to then, is a difficult thing for humans to grasp because we're very cause and effect, immediate oriented. And I think that talk from Neural Cowboy really specified how AI is meant to be this framework that assists in comprehending hyper objects. And I think we agree that the industry itself, like the concept of how it's interacted with, is one done with profit in mind. But we focus more on the utilization of this tool and automation as a whole. I think that's something that people get treated as like a boogeyman of, you should be afraid of all of it, instead of, no, it's here to stay, and it's effectively like a extremely powerful device in your pocket, so you should know how to use it. And I think that's the category I've leaned on more. That talk was very interesting because it broke down, like, basically it was AI will move on without you, whether you interact with it or not. And I the space of how that will exist materially is something I was debating about. Like, will we have data centers before we have like homeless shelters for the amount of people that will be climate refugees from things that are changing? Or you mentioned agriculture last time as well, CJ. Like, how many people will starve while they're asking Chat GPT 9 like what they should make for food with the dirt they have? So I definitely bounced to that level of like concern and fear. But I guess I would ask you two, who arguably are much more optimistic about how we integrate with it, what are some examples you could think of, or projects you're working on where you've been able to utilize automation towards material improvement of these disenfranchised groups? We were talking about something as well. I don't know if this is a good transition for the drone project that was being mentioned in one of our chats as well.
Also, a couple of things. I think an easy way to understand hyperobjects is like anything that's too complicated to think about.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's especially where the feeling of clarity is generally a cognitive distortion. And if you feel like you get it, you definitely don't. So like quantum mechanics is like the classic example where it's like, if you feel like you understand quantum mechanics, you definitely don't. Right. Same with all of these big picture things. Like you mentioned methane. Methane is complicated because like we should be burning it. When you burn methane, you reduce its carbon equivalent impact by 99%. And it's produced by all organic processes. Everything that's alive produces methane. And so like we talk about agriculture and like cows and methane, and it's like that's trivially small in like the scope of how methane is produced and the ways that we're not capturing it today.
Sure.
The vast majority of it is like 80% of it is not from that. Right.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I thought it was exclusively the beef industry. I understood it also as like that was partially caused by corn subsidies, and cows are not physically built to handle like I was reading a really long paper on how they create like a concrete like substance in one of their stomachs from it, and that produces overproduction of methane.
They're from England, and we have Euroformed the United States. We used to have great herds of buffalo, which produced less methane overall and would run across the Great Plains where people don't live because it's just like kind of uninhabitable a lot of the year.
Yeah.
And like we used to have great tracts of public land that produced a large volume of food that was like abundant, and it would move around. So everybody got some. That was how food distribution worked, was through biomanagement, right? So if we could, as a group, band together, and do more biomanagement of large complex processes, that would be so much more useful. The problem is it requires a lot of great cognitive overhead to transition the current status quo of industries and
Yeah.
people who are involved in these production processes into this other more biomanaged process, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so one of the things that AI can help us with is all of this stuff requires a great deal of cognitive overhead where you just, as a knowledge worker, I go to work every week and I put in a lot of hours of cognitive labor, right?
Hmm.
Get home, I'm very tired of cognitive labor is really taxing on the cognitive. So then I don't want to do so much cognitive labor, right? Um, and so like AI kind of reduces a lot of, I don't have to do certain cognitive labor that I don't find engaging when I get home. And I also can reduce the amount of overhead each action takes, right?
Hmm.
And so then I can do more. I'm more productive as a knowledge worker. It's kind of like when we got cranes. Okay, it's cranes for knowledge workers.
Yeah.
That's what it really is. It like makes a whole bunch of things that would have taken your whole day turn into like an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Yep.
not lazy, it's a crane, Like that's like calling people who want to use cranes lazy. Well, you could just pick it up if like 500 of you just would get off your butts.
Amish
Lazy,
people pick up
like I
barns.
mean, that's I don't know how to respond always to those people there that are like, you should value the labor you're doing, and it's just like, it doesn't go away just because largely what you're doing is reading code in the afternoons instead of trying to force yourself to write it when your brain is tired. Like, I don't know. So yeah, it's a lot of things.
I think that's a really important distinction to make because a lot of people have this misconception that people who are very pro AI or pro, at least in the assistance of it, want you to like offset or remove that cognitive load entirely towards the AI. But the distinction you guys have made, and this is something I like, hopefully we're on the same page about this, but it sounds like it isn't like think less. It's you now have more opportunity to think about the things you find important to you, right? That it isn't you should think
Yeah,
less, you should offset it. It's you now have more cognitive resource, time, literal ability to focus and learn deeper about the things you do care about. Like, I
yeah,
think that's one distinction that the market gears towards, don't worry, we'll take care of it. There's simplicity. There's a profit model of you have more free time, we'll do it for you. But I think the important thing that this is the whole reason why I started reaching out to you two as well, is that we agree that there's this mentality that instead of it being used to displace work that you don't need to do and you just sit there drooling on your couch for 6 hours now, you can
Yeah.
focus on something you care about or want to learn about, not to completely disload or remove that cognitive responsibility, but to focus it on parts of your life or parts of particular knowledges that you find valuable. I think
yeah.
that's the biggest potential to me in terms of like
And,
material impact to
and that
people of every class.
and
Concrete.
that connects to the previous point that if you look at the way that people feel about like AI, which itself is a hyper object, right? It's too
Mm-hmm.
complicated for anyone to understand.
Yeah,
And
it doesn't have a
if
proper definition anywhere either.
if
Like it's
I disagree, but if you
yeah, I guess when people are
if
talking
you
about
have like
it.
a universally positive view or a universally negative view and you feel like you have a complete understanding, you definitely don't.
Yeah.
Mark Andreessen with his like more is more, it's always good, more technology is better, is equally insane to the people who are like,
Mm-hmm.
we should like go back to living in caves and like like unplug everything. Solar
Yeah.
panels are too much technology, right? Like anarcho-primitivists and Mark Andreessen are equally wrong about AI for the same reason because they have this it's not complicated
They're
view.
dogmas. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's not complicated view. If you ask either of us or any of us, obviously, is AI good or bad? The answer is it's complicated.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah,
it's not complicated, you're definitely wrong.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel a little bit bad for the people who see any specific video of mine and it's their first video, because they argue with me like I have not made all of these other points, you know? They're just like, no, you don't understand how simple this is, or no, it's the other way. And I'm like, no, yeah, it's very dangerous, and here's the problems, and this is actually debunked, but there's all these other problems, and
Yeah.
also here's where it's useful. Like I use it for I'll do a lecture, and then it automatically uploads to Loom, and then Loom creates a transcript for me, and then I take the transcript and I put it into Claude, and I'm like, hey, can you turn this into a series of articles so that somebody who's not a video watcher can just go through it? And then also, can you make a checklist of all the things? And so then it does that, right? It's like, here's the checklist of all the things, right? And then people can follow, you know, me talking in a lecture who are not strong, like, listen retainers, you know?
Hmm.
And so that like creates more accessible materials. I don't have time to do that and all of the other trillion things I do to try to stay on the edge of technology, right? Like what I do instead is look at new ways to use the things, or like build stuff, or like do some art, or like, you know, and also sometimes chill out. I do use it so that I can chill out sometimes, and that's fine actually, you know. And also how we get to the real solar punk utopia is that we're not all having to work so hard all the time.
Hmm.
Just gotta like not continue the other thing is the habit of consumption, you know. That's how you really escape, is you break so much the habit of consumption, so that when you
Yeah.
save yourself time, you don't then fill it with more work, you know, yourself, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. Someone asked a really good question that I was actually curious about myself is, do you guys have a preference of model? I don't, I personally don't. Like, I would say my interaction with I like to do a lot of things artisan, which means a lot of things I don't do actually don't happen. But the things that do, I focus on, like AI captions I use on TikTok. I think they're very useful, but I give them a once over physically myself. But do you two have a preference of model you're using? You mentioned Claude a couple of times. So do you prefer a particular model of Claude? Like, I know that there's different. I understood Claude is very good with coding. I've fiddled with it for MCP a little bit, but I know that GPT models also differ in their, I guess, interactivity with you in terms of its language use. So, is there a preference you have towards what you guys like to use?
It's like asking me if I have a preference of a person, like, you know, I
I
mean,
mean,
you
yeah,
know,
kind of.
I mean, it depends on what I'm doing, honestly.
I feel like
I
for me, I just cannot trust Dario.
what?
I just cannot trust Dario. Like
Dario.
yeah, Anthropic. I like
Oh yes, okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. He
I
works,
always see, huh?
he works with Palantir. They Palantir uses them. They have
It's
Palantir
more than that. It's like
more
I
than,
feel like I feel like Sam is not that complicated. He's
yeah,
sort of this like naked psychopath narcissist who like
Yeah,
just wants money and doesn't really care about anything and
yeah.
will say whatever it takes.
yeah,
Dario is like more complicated in a scary way, where it's like the length, just like the length of the system prompts for like GPT versus like any of the Anthropic, it's insane. It's a novel, you know. It's like that is such a brittle architecture for anything that it just makes me nervous. I've never honestly I've never used anything from Anthropic, and I feel like there's something icky about it, about the whole like worldview and why he started it and the story he's telling about why they're doing it. I just like 100% don't trust him.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so you
Plan is
believe his priority, his goal is incepted somewhere in the model structure of Anthropic AIs?
every model is an extension of whoever created it. And if you look at the efficient frontier here of like the best models that we have, they're all
Yeah.
Chinese
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and they're free
Best is in what? Like best is in like
benchmarks.
Well, that
what is it? What is it?
that's
Benchmarking,
the
I guess, is
MML,
it?
right? So the MMLU is the multi oh it's the multimedia. I don't know. It's this language understanding thing. It's a bunch of tasks where it's like,
It's undergraduate level
yeah,
trivia.
undergrad trivia. Do you get? It's a quiz of what do you understand? It's they have updated it. They've added some stuff. It's a bunch of like SAT questions also. So it's the ability.
Standardized testing, huh? I didn't realize it was using that as reference.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Standardized tests. Yeah,
I
like
got
those.
my own beef with that.
Yeah.
It feels
Oh,
like a reverse Goodhart at this point though, because if you're learning how to pass the test, shouldn't they be good at that, right? And like the fact that they're not is kind of, I think, is an interesting
Mm,
way to start that conversation. I'm also curious because we talked last time about Goodhart's law, obviously. If you create a measure of how good something is, they will learn to be good at the test rather than be good at the thing. Have you guys
yeah.
followed the ARC, the new ARC testing? It's this like nonprofit that was created. They have like ARC AGI, etc. And they're coming up with a new one every year. But
that's
with the third one now, it's not public. The test is like a private test that you
yeah,
so that they can't learn to
that's
be good at it.
true, frankly.
And each question is procedurally generated. And so it's giving them like three puzzles with the
Yeah.
puzzle and the solution, and then giving them a one to do. And it's like trying to test how quickly they can learn how to do a new thing that they've never seen before. Like
Yeah,
I think that's great, right?
it's true. That is cool. It's just like, you guys, like, it's not, there's no such thing as intelligence, right? There's no like
Sure.
linear measure that is valid, right?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I get, yeah. I mean, it's like when you
No,
boil
like
down to like what
line
is,
someone's gonna cross somewhere with IQ, because IQ was always nonsense. It's really just the
yeah.
ability to like visualize and rotate images in your mind, which is of use to a number of skills that were in demand at the time when the test was produced.
Also like IQ at its very concept, the concept of G, general intelligence measuring, is from a eugenics standpoint in the first place. Like it was a
Yes, yeah.
particular kind of intelligence. It's like
Time
measuring a fish's
is
ability to climb a tree.
complicated on a line. It's because they want to have a hierarchy, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Hierarchy is exactly what is being established. I mean, like
There's
I
no CEO who's going to be good at driving a taxi. There's no,
yeah.
it's just not how that works. But he could get good at driving a taxi over time, and then it's just like you know, in kind of in video games, you have like skills, individual
Yeah.
skills, rank up the specific
Yeah.
skills, like in the crafting system in every video game. That's how things actually work in
Totally.
real life.
Yeah.
It's that you have a skill and then you train in it and it's good. And some skills have some component skills, right? That are good in other things. Like if you're good at drawing fine details, there are a number of other skills that require the ability to draw fine details. There's a lot of
Yeah.
jobs that require coding, right? Being able to write code. There's a lot of jobs that require being able to interface with the database or being
Mhm.
install programs, deploy them across the thing, understand, you configure networks. These are discrete skills that are of measurable ability and are finite in scope is the thing.
Yeah.
And so it's not about a benchmark, it's about a breadth of benchmarks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the only way to really measure it.
And we're also talking about like pedagogy as a whole, which I like should point out as well is actually
Before
fairly immature
before
in
we
its
switch topics
study.
though,
Oh yeah, go
It's
ahead.
yeah,
actually
I
metrics, and it's actually a very well developed science.
before
I
we switch topics,
yeah, anyway, it's fine.
yeah, before we switch topics, can I just say I think like one of the things that some of us have been saying for like a couple of years now, um, all like the moment when all the smart people quit who are working at these big frontier labs was the moment when the line leveled off, right? So you have like whatever benchmark you're talking about, um, it's just like the CPUs of today are really not different from the CPUs of 10 years ago,
Sure.
except that like really specific niche tasks like HEVC. You tried to run HEVC on a CPU from 10 years ago, it's impossible. You do it
Mhm.
today, it's easy, right? But like the tools that we have are not going to get better at the things that we've been talking about. They're going to get better at the things that we are not yet talking about.
Great way
Like
to describe that. Yeah.
like but even those things, it's the same thing. So like when you look at like reasoning, right?
Yeah.
It's almost always true, or attention or intelligence. It's almost always true, especially in intelligence modeling, that engineers understand what they don't know how to do, what they haven't solved, what the model isn't capable of, and they will name a function that, and they will just stare at this blank function definition and then put something in there and call it solve. And that's what attention is. It's not attention. And that's what reasoning is. It's not reasoning. And that's what thinking is. It's not thinking, right? It's the admission that they know that it doesn't do that. And the approach of like reasoning and thinking and everything, all these other things people are adding to all the models now is essentially just fine tuning in the idea of like, you need a really long prompt to get a good answer. And so like,
Mhm.
this is the initial prompt, make the prompt a lot longer with like talking about what it could mean and how you could approach it, and then try to solve it, which is already like, that's prompt engineering 101. Like this isn't really new, right? And that's the big difference between models from a couple of years ago. But what it tells us is that the foundational models that we already have, right? If you have like all these different discrete like clusters of sizes that apply to different use cases. You have like the edge case, it's like the 10 max. You have the like performance PC, it's like 30, 50 max, right? And then you have like the data center scale. And this all converge into these three use cases, all the models that have come out, right? And so the question becomes, if you have a, a vast corpus of tens of trillions of tokens of training data, and you create a model with the same architecture and size on that, it's going to be the same thing. They converge to the same thing. All these models that are coming out are not different from each other. And most of them
Mhm.
are just fine tunes of older ones. The question is like, how do you want it to behave, right? But what it tells us is that like we are already there. Like the there that we're getting to, we're there. And
Yes.
that the future is us learning how to use them better, particularly given like what we're talking about with more specific prompting, like more concrete examples and specific requirements and stuff, and then letting them run with it. And
Oh,
that's
this
this whole agentic world that we're in now.
management. No, the reason
They're
why
not,
I'm mad at it is most people would not know what to do if somebody gave you a personal assistant,
yeah.
especially a personal assistant who
It's
was
true.
on the other side of the world, right? Hiring somebody on the other side of the world and getting them to do whatever you could do on the computer by explaining what to do. I have done that a lot as a teacher. As if you want to run a big program, you have to hire people and like have them do spreadsheets. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, but I don't have a huge budget, so I could hire someone for like 20 times what they would get paid at whatever job in their country, and I can like, they're like, okay, cool, I could like move into a house for this money, and I'm like, okay, great, let's do it. Can you like check this email, make sure everybody turns something in, email this in this format. And if they didn't, email them back and say, hey, change the format. And like that's their job. It's a lot of jobs like that that also are gonna go away though, right? And so it's like kind of it's a problem. But y'all, it's okay, it's not actually that immature of a science. Here's the lowdown on that. There's this database called ONET, right? And it's basically people did a psychometric analysis. The government does a psychometric analysis on what are the job skills for every job. What do people need to know for every job? It's called ONET, right? They maintain it for every job category and every like type of job that there is in the United States, so they can figure out, our colleges covering the skills that are needed in the job industry, right?
Mm,
And so it's a lot of abstract stuff because most jobs don't change that much. Software engineering had to get a little bit high level because it changes so much what is important. So they can't put like JavaScript on there. They put like writing code, coding in a high level programming language or something like that. Or like, writing software, right? And so it's like high level, but it's also like communication and like, but the things that you see on the job description that are like very abstract, right?
mm,
And this is actually a very well-studied science. It's just that software engineers are not knowledgeable about it. And this is what I have experienced. I used to work at a company, and you can see it on my LinkedIn from my website, but I'm not going to mention it. And for reasons. And so we did the largest longitudinal study on software engineering talent ever done, with 225,000 interviews across tens of thousands of companies. I forget exactly, thousands of companies. But yeah, so we had to figure out, like, how do we make all those interviews the same? How do we make them fair? How do we make two different raters agree on a score?
Yeah.
You know, like all kinds of stuff like that. And how do we actually evaluate software engineers fairly in a way that doesn't suck? And you know,
Wow.
I'll stop commenting on how I feel about any of that stuff. But y'all, it's actually hard. The hardest thing about my job was talking to software engineers and saying, hey, we actually understand what it is you do, and there's like a way to score that or rate that at all, because that's very threatening, right?
Hmm.
And most software engineers don't know how to build a test because that's a different job than
Yeah.
software engineering. And they don't know how to measure intelligence just because they're intelligent. They don't know how to measure it because it's a different job than software engineering.
Totally.
Fully different job, just actually fully unrelated to anything about. But the problem is, if you want to get to artificial general intelligence, you need some way to, but there's no general intelligence.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is they're chasing this idea that doesn't make sense. But
Your
what
LinkedIn is blowing my mind right now.
but what we do have, oh thanks. What we do have is uh general capabilities, right? Like, and the general capabilities are expanding of these models, right? And they're becoming very broad. Vision language action models can fold laundry. Pi Zero is a model that came out in 2023, I think. No, I think it's 24. Was it last summer? Yeah, it was last summer that it came out, and it's two arms. Y'all, it is Llama 2. Llama 2 can fold laundry. Okay? Like, that's coming. Llama 2 was trained to fold laundry. And
Yeah, with like physical arms, you're saying as well?
and all of the training data is public, right? Like, we've been collecting robot episodes trying to make robots be able to do the boring things, right?
Yeah.
They get to, I think, to the point where they had spatial understanding, which is why the vision models are actually pretty important, and the world models are very important, right? Those foundation world models allow us to create unlimited virtual training environments for
Hmm.
robot bodies to operate in a world like physics, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is we can tweak the physics, so we can also train robots that will work on other planets. So
Ah,
where the physics is different, where gravity is different, right? And like where the air is different, moving through things is maybe different. Like the air can have resistance and stuff, right? Or like in a storm, fly in a storm, right? Like sometimes physics, and usually what you think of as a physics engine is like the viscosity of the thing through which you move and stuff like that. You know, swimming is fundamentally different.
BFD.
Physics feeling, as you would implement different values in the physics engine
Hmm.
in order to simulate swimming over and flying over walking, right? And
Let
so,
it decide them.
yeah. And so we can kind of do omni environments now. We can generate those. And those are capabilities, but they're not capabilities in language models, because in the same way that your brain has different areas and regions in it that are responsible for different things. The hippocampus, right? Versus like
Yeah.
the train of thought that is in your mind, right? And then there's like, your ability to speak, right? And like your ability to hear and interpret what is said, and your ability to speak a specific language versus another language, right? Like, and so these are things that we can measure, and they're concrete. There is no intelligence. It doesn't make sense. And so this is kind of my whole beef with, like, I'm down for benchmarks that measure a specific thing.
Yeah.
It's like a test for a specific job. That's really actually what we would have to do, but there's a reason why employers don't give us IQ tests, It's because
Yet.
it predicts nothing about your ability to drive a bus, you know?
Yeah. You said something at the beginning there that kind of blew my mind a little bit. Have you ever, I assume that none of us love Tim Ferriss, but have you like read his book,
Yeah.
his first book?
I've not.
Yeah. The 4-hour work week. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I've
His
heard of it. Yeah.
his whole argument is that like um you should hire someone like an assistant from like a poor country where like you can pay them a few dollars and they'll do whatever you want and then figure out something for them to do.
Yeah.
And his argument is that like doing that will teach you how to manage people, and those kinds of relationships will allow you to build a lifestyle business. So you can pay your bills without having to do anything and they can do it for you.
Yeah.
And it was like very popular
Right.
at the time. That is exactly how we should think about agentic systems.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's like literally exactly the same. If you like start playing with one, get it to do something, right? Like
Right.
it's sitting there on a box in your garage doing something for you.
Yeah.
Figure out how to get it to like solve problems and do interesting things and like do your homework and whatever. And like
Practice using it, right?
Think really hard about how
Yeah.
you solve problems, right? Like, actually, I think one of the most transformative things about me teaching people AI stuff that I see from students is like they have to think really hard about their own problem-solving process.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of metacognition.
You'd think about thinking, yeah.
That's so good for you. And you have to do a lot of critical thinking to work with AIs because critical thinking is just naming the quality of something. And quality doesn't mean anything. Something can be relevant, something can be precise, something can be accurate, something can be clear, something can be broad, something can be logical, but it cannot be good or quality because quality is like a variable, it's an abstract one of those words, right? It's a term. And so that's what you have to be good at critical thinking already to get good results out of the AI. And so, in order to get good at AI, you have to get good at critical thinking. That's also good for your brain.
Yeah. I think what I feel is like a growing, like when I think about using AI in a manner that would encourage someone to think more critically, studies have gone back and forth on the kind of people who would excessively use an LLM or AI, specifically an LLM in this case, that they might not have the right tools previously, and that AI gets attributed as like the catalyst. Like it undeniably can catalyze people's behavior patterns or methodologies that are unhealthy, but attributing it to the direct blame, it'd be like, it's focusing on the wrong part of the problem, which is to supply and allow the baseline education of people, like accessibility from the get-go. So I guess I would ask is like, we're describing a lot of benefits in this grand scheme of like, we could have robots that could physically fold laundry and like go to different planets and things like that. When I think about what that does for a material set of people who are affected here now, like what I think of, make your own LLM. There's some comments that people mentioned. Specifically, what I mean is spin up your own locally. Yes, sorry. Yeah, I should be exact with that wording. Spin up your own LLM because a lot of people have fear about what is. Yeah, because as soon as I said, I was like, wait, that's not what I mean. Spin up your own like model of like, say, like I ran DeepSeek on a Mac Mini I have randomly, but like, understanding terms that people are afraid of. Like, I'm afraid of these companies using my information for these things. Like, okay, so you're looking for more closed loop interaction, as in the data itself doesn't escape what you're feeding it, and you can grow it from there. Another random tool I think that I encountered when AI was first stepping on the scene was a little one called Goblin Tools. You would give it a vague description, it would sort of prompt into its own. It would break down by guessing what you were describing as what steps might proceed for that. And that was helpful for me because someone with ADHD, sometimes I'll be like, I need to clean my house. And then I'm like, how? Like, I should break it down by, I guess, locations. And then what do I do there? And then just asking it that, to me, it's a constant reference point, right? So, and unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna have time to get into the deep topic this time, but we should in a different live of talk about generative AI as well, because that's something I think I see myself having deeper, like a lot of my concerns about things are probably more posited around the concept of generative AI and how it's used, mainly from an industrial standpoint. I think like one of the misconceptions people get as well, and this is something I repeatedly clarify every time we all meet and every time we talk, is because people confuse interacting or utilizing AI as a dependency that you'll develop or should let emaciate. But you guys are very clearly pointing out the opposite, that you should use it to enrich and create more time for you to continue to do so. And I think when people see it, this is that talk that I was talking about that Neural Cowboy had at DEF CON, which was, even if I consider it an adversarial relationship, it can be symbiotic in the sense that it supplies and enriches things that I find value in. And, I don't trust one source. I think diversifying your threat database, which is what we do here in these conversations, by even having different opinions or using different models even to come to the same conclusion, diversifying that concept both in and out of the tools that you're using, I think is essential to maintaining that scaffold, that cognitive like framework that gets enriched by AI instead of emaciated. It's like, you still need to go on a walk even though you drive everywhere. It's important. If you don't use it, you lose it in that faculty. But what is to be lost, I think, is also something that people are scared of. Like you were saying, some things will go away. The concept of like sending an email or artisan level interaction to what would be considered grunt work will change over time, undoubtedly. But what's valuable, I think, will be pressed back in. Like there are sets of people who are saying, no, like I want this way, or no, I'm researching about it, or no, this LM is wrong about this. And I think that's important. That's essential. You want that diversity. Otherwise, I mean, it's like epigenetics as well. Like the more you concentrate on a particular kind or one specific thing, you create this huge surface area of risk of like specializing in that faculty, and then it becomes weak.
Can I show you a chart?
Oh, what is this? Int 8 compute versus stakeholder count. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so on this chart, we have the number of stakeholders that are involved in making a decision here on the x-axis versus how much compute power do they control, right? And these are all given in int 8 ops. So like it's easy to convert between different kinds of math. And like this is the one that all the open source models are running in. So what's the equivalent of that these people control in these different institutions and stuff?
So would this be like a vague graph to reference as the influence on these models? Like you would
like your ability to use them.
Oh, okay.
Compute power per person or /gov.
Well, I'm confused on, is it their allowance? Is there contribution to it, or what like?
No, like how much they control.
How much?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
They control on this on the X.
Yeah.
On the Y axis, up and down is how much compute, and then
so this is
X.
The U.S. empire.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stakeholders and there's a lot of control of compute resources. And then over there you have the oligarchs, right? So the oligarchs is all these like one person empires, and they actually have more power than the US empire, which is like wild. And then here you have this cluster of academic institutions and state actors, which are essentially interchangeable in terms of their stakeholder count versus like their resources. And then the blue ones here, you have zaibatsus, like these large multinational corporations like Google and Microsoft and Apple, where they have like a board and a CEO, and like that's it for decision making, and they have like an incredible amount of power, right? And then down here you have things that individuals will have access to. So you have like a 4090 versus like a Raspberry Pi or an iPhone or an Xbox, and these are like you have some degree of compute capacity as an individual that is just like every single one of these lines is 10 times. So it's like 10 times more, 100 times more, 1,000, a million, right? And like I think this is the right way to think about it, because like these are the opponents in terms of the things we're talking about. Like these are the other players on the field. so to speak. And the question becomes like, um, Elon has so much more compute power than anyone else, than any institution,
Hmm.
right? Like, like almost more than everyone else put together. And like that's
Hmm.
it's like insane. But also he's like fucking stupid, right? Like he
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
understand how to
he's
use it. He doesn't have any kind of coherent like plan or like
yeah.
goals.
His influence
He's
has only harmed literally every project he's touched. Like
Yeah,
yeah,
everything he touches, he turns into
it's a
nonsense.
reverse Midas touch. Yeah.
but then at the same time you have like the University of California where it's like they're like one of the biggest in the world. Like they're incredibly powerful in terms of access to compute resources. And then what are they choosing to do with that, right?
Right.
So the question for me ends up being like, as small as like community AI groups, as like
Hmm.
individuals, what
Mhm.
can we do with what we have? How can we deploy our limited resources in order to achieve our long-term
Yeah.
objectives? What are,
Unionizing computation.
and this is like, well, not even that. I'm saying like in terms of the strategy, like if you have a
Okay.
4090,
Yeah.
how can that help you? Like what can you actually do with it?
Hmm.
Any of these resources that we have as individuals, the downtime utilization opportunities are enormous. So it's like, what do you, it used to be everybody had like SETI at home running as the
Sure.
screensaver. And
Yeah.
then when your screensaver comes on, it's like looking for aliens in the data.
Hmm.
It's like, maybe we'll find aliens on my
Register.
screensaver.
So, like with ngrok or something like that, you just need a place where you register your URL, where you make it public, right? You just need a proxy. And then you would put it in a little form, and then there'd be a little router, right? That would handle dispatching the request to the correct model, whatever model you made available.
Yeah.
And then your processor would process a single request. And so, and it would just load balance, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so like, honestly, that's all we would need to set up is a little website with a little form. You drop your OAI formatted chat completion URL, and then people could hook up a local thing to a remote one, right? That's a thing, or they could use it as an API, and then we'd have community compute. And I mean, I
But
I started
the,
to put
the,
one together, but I need
the,
to like actually
the
build a load balancer and not use a little hack together
yeah.
script, and I need
The
some
bigger
help.
question though is like, why?
So,
Like, what
Yeah.
is the
That's
goal?
literally what I was going to ask.
What are
Is
the
it to like,
objectives?
is it to swarm like decentralized computation at a rate that is the concern Elon's
free
egregiously exclusive like ability to contribute or manipulate computation that he has a monopoly on it that we want to decentralize the access to it. I'm like or to decentralize the influence towards these models. Like
the
I
ability
think
to mod.
for yeah, for me the question is like what like we have a limited amount of resources, right? And
you just
we
mean like
don't have,
materially in the world.
no, I mean compute resources. Like
Okay,
if we're
compute.
talking about
Yeah.
AI,
Yeah.
we have a limited amount of compute resources. It's like very limited. It's not necessarily a bad thing as long as we have like goals and objectives that we
Mhm.
are deploying them towards achieving, right? Strategy,
Yeah.
the definition of strategy is like how are you choosing to use your scarce resources to over time to achieve your long-term goals.
Mhm.
And we don't have long-term goals, right? At this point. But like maybe like the thesis of cyberpunk, for example, is like we should do whatever it takes to make sure that us and people that we care about are okay with everything that's coming, right? Because it's not going to be good, right? Like it's going to be scary and terrifying in the future. And so like we should be like getting ready for that. And what are the projects we could be working on now that would put us in a better position to be okay when those kinds of things happen? And I think like one of the obvious answers is this idea of like connecting robots together with local systems. We're running AI models on the farm and we're able to control robots to do things that are needed for agriculture, for like identifying pests, for identifying weeds, for dealing with weeds, for planting seeds, for sharing seeds between communities, for communicating, for having these kinds of, basic things that we're going to need,
In
particularly
case
in this.
Monsanto wants to cut off computation for it without dealing. I get you guys are talking about seizing the means of computation, aren't you?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, not
Um,
really. We already have stuff. We already have. I think one of the big lessons is like we thought we would need Elon level compute power to do this kind of stuff, and it turns out that we already have more than what we need
Mm.
if we decide what we want to do with it.
Hmm.
okay. So y'all, I've been working on this. I mean, just to segue in.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So we seized the means of production, me and Andy. There was a company that I can't name because I told them I wouldn't, that was being purchased by Amazon, and they were getting rid of a bunch of robot arms, and they are so we were like, oh, we're gonna need to build a lot of drones, um, probably. So, and other stuff like, um, we should probably get those arms. And so, and also teach people how to use them because like that's the means of production. And so like Andy's literally right now and for the next few hours having an auction for a bunch of buses that were painted by local artists that and a bunch of like cars. He's also the like he runs a bunch of rally races with the National Rally Association, so he's like a race car driver as well.
Oh, cool. Different NRA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, because I'm not as hardware as I could be, and
Sure.
like that's the next thing. That's the next thing that I want to do. And so how do I get more into hardware? And then I went, I don't know, on oops, someone's calling me. Who's literally calling me? Hold on, what is this? Oh. Calling me on Signal. Okay, anyway.
Forgot to go on, yeah, do not disturb or something.
Yeah, like I had Signal open because I was talking to y'all. But let's see. What was I saying?
Is using the robots.
We
You
so
need cars, trucks, part of the National Rally Association.
like what would cost $1 million if we bought them new in robot arms. And so we're gonna do a car factory thing. It's a lot of it's like 18 robot arms or 20, something like
You're
that.
building a car factory?
Well, Andy's got a car factory. He
Uh,
bought a derelict car factory in Detroit, right?
oh, I've seen this.
Yeah, he runs the Detroit bus company where like he drives all the school kids in Detroit to their after school care programs because
Yeah,
they
you linked this in the Signal chat, right?
yeah.
Oh,
Detroit doesn't have like a lot of resource, infrastructure, so he's just personally like providing all of the after school care rides, and so he's got a bunch of buses that he's like it's time for them to go be art buses now or something, and like he's trying to make some space to also and raise some funding to fix the roof so we can run this thing, because that's what we need is a roof for the car factory. So we're like literally working on the Factorio thing, like absolutely, yes, CJ, like for sure, and we're definitely on it. And like, you should come. You want to come play with some robot arms in Detroit sometime while it's
Sounds
nice.
exciting. So, what I mean, what are you building? Like drones? Was it related to?
That's what I'm gonna try to convince Andy to do is build a bunch of drones.
well, but
'Cause
also, I mean, today you can
yeah,
get like an ESP32 LoRa drone that's just like a printed PCB that you can attach motors to, and it's like $20.
yeah, exactly. And they can do stuff. One, they can monitor areas so that you can know if, like
Use a lot of agriculture.
it's like sleet and snow and ice, you could know in advance about the weather, weather stations, winkety wink. And so like there's a lot of things that you could do with drones. They're pretty useful, right? And also they can carry small amounts of objects, right? Tiny objects.
Like
Honestly,
planting seeds and
literally, y'all, yes, actually planting seeds, right? Like, um, yeah. So
people are doing like guerrilla gardening with like putting like native wildflowers, just like imagine, and I mean, I would definitely not do this, but imagine the things you could do with like a UAV controlled by Meshtastic, full of like native wildflower seeds,
yeah,
right? I would worry about like, you know, HOAs, right? Not
Fuck
sure they would
HOAs.
enjoy that.
I
But
I
these are the
get
kinds
why.
of these are the kinds of things that seem like, you know, like watching all the footage about like the innovation that's been made in Ukraine by people like on the ground, which is very cyberpunk. Like the street will find its own use for things. It's like principle number one, right? Like
Yeah.
high tech, low life, that you have people
Praxis leads. Yeah.
taking off the shelf stuff and doing like really creative things with it, right? To achieve their goals and their needs and whatever. And it's like that's obviously the future, right? But like what kind of things could we use them for? Like with planting gardens, with like checking for, you know, one of the projects that I really want to work on in the long term is doing like adverse possession of real estate that's been effectively abandoned. So there are parcels all over the country that were built, that were bought as investments, that were sold as investments to baby boomers who, you know, like died or lost the paperwork decades ago. And it's like nobody's
Hmm.
paying the property tax on that land. And if you just pay the property tax, you can own it, assuming you're using it in an open and notorious way. And so one really obvious one is like if a particular county, you have like a base where you're doing your admin and stuff, and there's like you identify 100 parcels where it's been abandoned, nobody's taking care of it, nobody's paying the property tax, and you send your robots to like cultivate it with a garden, right? And you pay the property tax on that land. After a certain amount of time, you become the owner of that land. And
Mhm.
then you can put it into land trust and it becomes like a community garden for the community, becomes a place where people can go. And like that's totally legal. And you can get a ton of land that way essentially for free. And in particular, I think like people are very eager to donate to projects of like doing like land back kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right? So like it's like doing it near reservations, like around the Grand Canyon, for example, with the Hopi Reservation, doing like
Mhm.
adverse possession and then giving the land to the Indigenous Land Trust as like community gardens that were adversely possessed from these like boomers that bought the land and abandoned it. Like
Yeah.
there's so much interesting and exciting stuff you could do that would be like way easier if you had an army of flying robots to help you,
Mhm.
aside
And
from all the, you know, obviously the urban stuff too.
yeah, and honestly, if all of that sounds like a lot, this is the other thing that I will say about AI is that it will help you break down all of these things into a series of projects.
Hmm.
High level tasks. You'll get into the thing, no plan survives contact with reality for sure. But like, so any of your plans are not gonna either, right? And so you can get started by, you can know all the steps and you get in and it seems like oh, okay, it's more than I thought and now I have to plan for this and that. But like to get started, a lot of times blank page syndrome, like we say all these things about this stuff, but also CJ's done it all, right? Like you've
Hmm.
done land trust stuff, you know? I mean, like,
Julia and I are working on like doing a podcast or like episodes or live streams or interviews and stuff about that to kind of make it easier. It's complicated, but it's totally approachable.
yeah,
We've done
like
a lot of them.
how long did it take you to like get to like launch one of those intentional community land trust things?
It's
From
really not that complicated. A land trust is just a contract. A land trust is sort of not a real thing. It's a contract between whoever owns the land and whoever gets to use the land about like how it can be
Hmm.
used. That's all that a land trust is. And then it's really a question of who owns it because they can tear it up. If it's like some dude who's like being cool right now, like that's not a good idea. He can tear it up, right? He's gonna have you come build stuff and then he's gonna tear it up and he owns it, right?
yeah,
If it's a nonprofit that you're a voting member in, where there is no dude that controls it,
yeah,
um, you don't have to pay taxes on the land and nobody can fuck it up, right? So like we've done six of these land projects now, and the most recent one, obviously, that was on a TV show. We created a nonprofit to purchase the land, which is very easy because if you're starting a nonprofit that doesn't have an existing budget above like 50K or something,
Yeah.
you can just file the easy form. You have a nonprofit the same day. And then it can purchase the land with the donations that you've received. You don't have to pay any taxes on any of it ever. And now the nonprofit owns it. You've set up bylaws that are like whoever lives there gets to vote. And then this is how you can move in. This is how you can be forced to leave. This is the rules. Like, here's what you're not gonna like cave it or whatever, right? There are approval processes for like environmental considerations and stuff. You fill all that out. You write it into your contract. Everybody signs it. This is the law now.
Mhm.
And now you have a big free piece of land where you can live with your friends and family forever for free.
Yeah, it's actually not impossible to do. And it does take somebody to be doing the paperwork. Someone has to be the one who is the paperwork filer.
Sure.
Has to be the one who is like the actual like caller of meetings, you know. Like you know, actually like you like we're like, when are we doing it? Let's do the
Yeah.
when is the thing? That energy is what is needed to organize. Is when
I,
are we
I
doing
also
when?
I want to disagree though with the idea that there needs to be a person. I don't think that's true. I think you can have 100 people that don't agree about anything that can still get it done.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Because we
Somebody has
did
to
that.
send the first text. That's somebody has to send the group text first, you
Yeah.
know, but that's
They
it.
have to be initiators. Yeah. No, I mean, it goes back to the whole thing that we've started this conversation about in terms of praxis, like being paralyzed in the, oh, there's so many things to do, I don't know what to do. It's, well, you start by trying, like initiation of saying, what do we need if we don't know what to do, then the first thing we should figure out is what to do, and
Yeah.
we start there and initiate that. And
I
I
think
think that's like AI can help
totally.
automate and build the gap of that being much smaller.
The
I
other
guess
thing too
oh
is
yeah,
like
good.
you got to be comfortable with having a lot of pots on a lot of burners, and a lot of them are kind of not doing anything, right? Like we had like a lot of these land projects that are like under consideration or development or whatever,
Sure.
where it's like we would really like to do one in Tampa, we would really like to do one in Homestead, we would really like to do like somebody wanted to donate us a community in North Carolina in Asheville, you know, and like it's like okay, this is a lot of stuff. Put a group chat for each one. What's going on in the group chat? Is anybody really stoked and like pushing it forward, or is it kind of waiting for that, right? And I think
Right.
that's one of the things, if we're looking at, if we think about all of this, like the right way to think about all of this together is this extended mind hypothesis that like technology becomes an extension of your mind
Sure.
implicitly. And if you have like Obsidian is like this free open source like app that lets
I
you
love it. I love
take a lot
Obsidian.
of notes in
Mhm.
markdown files, which is like this rich text format that's very easy, which is also what GitHub uses, which is also what all the LLMs know how to like read and interact with and propose changes to. And so it very quickly becomes like sort of your personal repository of everything. And I think like that combined with these other tools, it's like it becomes a very easy way to like include agentic systems in the process, which is
Yeah.
basically what all of these websites, like the High Desert Institute, is basically that. It's just all a whole bunch of markdown files and folders, and AI can look at it and be like, I 100% understand everything that's going on. This is what I need to do, and then it's able to do it. And so like this whole flying robots thing is like this is like a lot of information from a lot of sources with citations, with like a lot of illustrations and stuff. And it's like I didn't do any of that. Like I had like a 10-minute conversation with an LLM. It's finding all the legal precedents that are relevant from all the different states. It's like ranking and categorizing like which states are the least and most attractive in terms of like the laws that apply and like does it apply if it's not commercial, and you know like it 100 x's your ability to execute on these kinds of ideas where it's kind of abstract and like you need to figure out the concrete details and make it cute so people are like, this is cute, I want to be part of this. And like it's totally possible, I think, to use like the right kind of prompting, the right kind of like style guides of like you have to include citations for facts and like it needs to be real and another one needs to check it. And like I think like it makes it like the Obsidian, the Markdown, the GitHub, it kind of all comes together and it's like, you know, making it really easy to approach everything we're talking about all at once.
Yeah. Now, someone asked a really good question in my chat that I think is a good. I'm reaching near an end point, so this maybe will be a good final question for me to ask you too as well. But someone asked, can you recommend books or sources to learn about using tech to fight oligarchy in high control governments? Now, I do want to qualify before y'all answer as well, that I think that a lot of that concept of tackling the framework of oppression and arguably fascist frameworks requires a baseline understanding of that. So reading books like, How to Identify Tyranny, the steps of fascism, you should understand the risk framework you're operating around by diversifying your sources of what it is that you consider adversarial. So I would say first, don't just focus on tech resources for that. Understanding the structure of how those oppressive systems work will organically allow you to also interpret, how can I use tech to target this? Like great examples, I think of calling your local representative. You could use LLMs to help you generate a very verbose, exact, specifically worded type of script you could deploy. And there's many methodologies behind that. But I do think it's a worthwhile question of, is there any particular resources you recommend for people to begin when they're building resistance technology towards that framework?
I would say find people that are already doing it and figure out what works and what doesn't. Because it's like somebody recently asked me, like, is there a good book to learn about like the current state of the art in AI ethics? I'm like, no.
No, yeah.
And it's the same with politics, obviously. Like it's moving very fast and it's changing very quickly. And like the efficacy of things, like something that works, everybody will do it and then it will stop working. Like it's a constant process of trying to understand. And I mean, like if you're interested in like local, like getting involved in local politics, just like DM the people that you like, that you see like, oh, this is a good take. Like you can become friends with them. Especially if you're, you know, doing content creation and stuff, because like they don't know how to do that. And like they
Yeah.
need your help. Like people, you know, they have like they know that they need to understand your perspective. If you come from a perspective of being like a terminally online, like, you know, person, the people that are watching us right now are probably people who are in that boat, right? And like they would benefit from having a relationship with you, and you would benefit from having a relationship with them, especially if you care. And like they will talk to you, and like they will just go get coffee with you, right? Like that's
Yeah.
totally possible. You can message your city council people and be like, let's go get coffee, and they'll be like, okay, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah, and a lot of, especially in a town that's small. If you think if you're in a small town, and you feel like a lot of the folks who are running your city are, it's an oligarchy, right? And it's
Mhm.
like, um, it's a lot of older folks also. Sometimes they feel very unapproachable, but they're not unapproachable. And part of the reason why they become politicians is so that they get to spend all their time talking to people in the
Yeah.
community and understand who they are, right? A
yeah,
lot of times in a small town, you get people with hyper empathy, and they feel like they're doing something. If it's something that, you feel like they're out of touch on, you can put them in touch. That's a
Yeah.
thing that you can definitely do. You just go to, or they will go to organizing meetings. They go to, dinners. They're usually publishing where they're going. That's sort of your job as a politician, is to say like, I'm gonna be here. Come talk to me and tell me your story. And your job is literally, that's how you get them to be put in touch, right? And
yeah.
so,
And I think even bigger than politics, like you can just DM people, right? Like like these are people.
yeah.
Yeah. Reach out to them. Right.
Like I had a whole conversation with Harry Stebbings the other day about like copycat
Remember this?
accounts. The 20 VC guy, the like he's like this like huge, like he's like huge. And like we're like talking about copycat accounts. It's like,
Yeah.
what is my life, right? But anybody can just DM people like this. And it's like if you have something interesting and relevant to talk about that's not creepy and parasocial, they're gonna be like, oh my God, like water in the desert, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess in terms of books and sources and ways to intersect, it sounds like we're on the same page of like, determine what is valuable to you in that revolutionary framework and seek out similar sources of people who have been talking about it, and then diversify from there of like, how do
yeah,
we automate this? How do we integrate it? I think that's true, is that like the praxis is something that's built around the theory that is conjoined first. Like all of us here, the whole reason we're having this conversation is because we all firmly believe that at the very least, AI has a strong material impact to people, and it can be used as a tool to assist in egalitarian effort of assisting people's material impact in their life.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it starts. We come from, we all, the three of us all come from different backgrounds in our jobs. We have different focuses in what we understand about cybersecurity and IT. I focus on risk. That's why I'm always the sketched out, scared Pepe Sylvia guy. Like, hey, what's gonna happen? I mean, but that's also important. I think about the framework, the OSI layer that I've sort of been building out. It's something, again, I still have like in literal whiteboards on my fridge of what it looks like. But to me, that's like intersecting with the kind of people that both you agree with and identify, and don't necessarily agree with like the material interaction of how they're doing things. Like in the leftist space, there's a lot of criticality of should we involve ourselves in the system, out of the system, and I don't see it as that binary modality. It's a gradient of you should do all of that. Like, yeah, vote, no, it's not enough. Yeah, like volunteer, no, it's not enough. Like,
Questions, it's not enough. It's not enough to call them either. Sometimes you call their line and you get the person, but like, who's screening their calls. But
Right.
yeah. Oh
sometimes
yeah,
do
they know me
that.
by name.
Yeah.
They call me by name now when I call.
That is a waste of time.
It is, absolutely. I've asked them directly, like, hey, are these reaching? They're like, not
Not at
really.
all.
Like,
It's
yeah,
there to prevent them from reaching you.
yeah, and I think that's important to like mention again, is that like when people experience that disagreement, that diversity of thought of saying like, no, this isn't enough, I think there's an ego that can get caught up in it. It's like, no, I want to do that, but refocusing it, like this diffusal technique I learned when I worked at Nintendo was specifically, it's not you versus me, it's us versus the problem. And the problem being these people don't have material access to food, water, shelter, education, medicine of a particular variety. And it's how do we address that? Even the people that you might not agree with in a particular fashion of like socially or spiritually or whatever, like there's still means to intersect. I think that's valuable and important to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like what we are largely trying to do is make sure that people understand that there is help that's available that is not the help that's being taken away right now.
Yes.
Like there's people who are doing these land trusts. If you cannot with capitalism, but you're down to help farm, like let's make sure that you actually want to do that. Check out going to a community garden as much as possible. Kind of imagine this is your new life now, and then join a like intentional community,
Do
right?
you love camping?
Like, I mean, don't run away to join the circus without knowing any circus skills. Like make sure
Mhm.
you
Or
really want
like
to
visit.
right? Like but
Visit. Like
doesn't
maybe spend a
there's
week before you move in.
Yeah.
yeah,
Or talk to someone who's visited the circus.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's gradients of how to interact and expose yourself to
make
that.
friends with people in the circus and go, so what's it like? Can you teach me to juggle? Like the same.
Yeah.
Also, I think like one of the really like one of the things that's really hard about all of this is that like if you're like a lot of people assume that there is some place where everything is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And they just need to find that and then everything will be fine. And it's like if you
No.
go to like a lot of people in particular have this like very idyllic view of these communities I've been
Yeah.
building and stuff. And it's like if you I watch the TV show, like it's not all great. Like there's a lot of like totally psychotic and like harmful toxic
Yeah.
people who are a part of any group. All groups have that.
Any groups.
And like it's like a question of where is the center of mass? And like is that the center of mass that you want? Right?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah,
is there a good
revolution
diversity of perspectives and like for example, everybody seems to think lately that like if they find like a queer commune, that's like perfect.
And
And
then
it's
they'll
like
be
no, everyone
they're
has the same
deifying the
trauma.
idea, right? Like they're not seeing it in a materially accessible or real way.
Yeah.
It's a deified like idolization, but it's like even in the most ideal revolutionary frameworks, it's human and messy. the hope, the concept, the idea itself is an agreement. It's a vector. It isn't a practice you're going to see executed perfectly. It's the,
Yeah.
okay, so this is what we want. This is what it's doing. That gap between is the work we have left. It's the work we have to keep doing. And seeing it
Right.
as not like this
That's your purpose.
rarefied promised land to reach, but this continuous effort, this fuel that maintains it, both sets the expectations realistically, because I think a lot of people will get burnt out. I call it the Icaran rise of revolutionaries. They'll just jump into this idea of ready to throw themselves into everything because they're caught in the idea, this idolized like deity of perfection and true freedom. And then as they get closer and closer, they start to go, wait, I've never even understood what that looks like in a material space. And it's like, you're
Wait,
one,
this is just
you're not going to
work.
reach that, like this is, you're not going to reach that yourself, first of all. But knowing that you want to, knowing how do you get there or what is not there right now and contributing to that is what creates, it's what allows you to contribute to the hyper object that is true revolutionary freedom in the first place.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I think
mean,
like that.
Even on the queer commune where you farming is work, y'all. Like farming is a work, and you
But
have
the
to
real
get up early, and you can't miss a day because the goats are hungry.
But also like other people are work, and like it's always going to be work. It's never going to be like, and we lived happily ever after. Right?
What's the phrase I heard? The cost
Also,
of community is convenience.
The other thing is, if you have no work, you'll be sad. There have been times when I could take time off, and it's great for a few weeks, but then you feel this like yawning purposelessness, and you end up
Itchiness,
bedridden, and then you find yourself some work that you find meaningful. That's like the way out of the like I am free from having to. If people are like, what if you had all your bills paid? It doesn't matter what you don't have extra money, but all the bills are paid. Now no more bills, right?
Yeah.
What do you do now with your time? Well, now you feel useless, right? And that's sort of the thing, is like that's what Nietzsche was on about a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of the 19th century philosophers were like literally just trying to find something to do because they were useless, like, and people took care of them. And that's what happens. And you have to find something that you find like meaningful in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's not as easy as it sounds.
But also,
in the chaos, you're like, no, I would just rest, and it's like you would rest for a little while, but you would get over the rest.
Yeah.
I think that's what people expect, but that's not what actually happens, because the reality, like core Maslow is like,
there's like stuff like that.
But like the really magical thing about building free places for people to live forever for free and just be okay forever is that there's this like thing that happens to people in that moment where you have people, particularly like, people who are like living outside in St. Louis, or people who were like living outside in Nashville or whatever, and they come to these lands and it's like everything is okay. Like I'm just gonna be okay now. I don't have to worry about anything. And there's like a couple weeks of just sort of like borderline psychosis of like, what does the world even mean, and like what is life, and it's like, have some coffee, right? Like, do you want some breakfast? And like we made pizza, from stuff that we grew in the garden, and like chestnuts that we picked from the trees, and it's like we made the bread, and we like, you want to help us do that, or like do you want to just have pizza? And then it becomes this like moment for people of like, what do I want to do now, like forever?
Yeah.
And Maslow's argument of like, if you get your hierarchy of needs met, is that people who reach that question,
they actualize.
Well, yeah, but like what, like after that, they become motivated to help other people get there, and that becomes the core motivation for them, which is absolutely true for me and for many of the other people, particularly the people who are like leaders in this world. Is like seeing so many people have that experience. It's like, this is the only thing we should be working on,
right?
And like everything else is just a way to make that happen. You know?
It's like the allegory of the cave. Like you've stepped outside, you're like, holy shit, guys, those were shadows. Like we don't have to spend our whole life for determining our worth by net value of contribution to shareholders. And we don't have to struggle in a mentality of your only contribution or the only thing you should focus on is your material safety. Because when that's contributed, that's what I mean by attacking the colonizer in your head, right? Is like You
Yeah,
have
but
to
his
be able to hope and dream past the idea of, am I safe materially now? Like, what would you be? Who would you contribute to? And how would you help people reach that?
but what I'm saying is the next thing after that, which is that people who do that, instead of like I'm okay, it becomes you have to come outside. Like, how can I persuade you to come outside?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
his Maslow's argument is that people who achieve that, like, I'm out of the cave, I have this moment of realization, and then I become extremely motivated to like talk other people into stepping outside
Yeah.
Yes.
because they can have that too.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the Blackfoot Nation TP model, right? Of like the community becomes the top of the pyramid, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah. Okay.
the thing, right? And Maslow says it's at the lower levels that you wish for esteem, right? At that point. But
Oh,
it's
this is cool.
really empathy driven, and it's really desire to integrate into the community driven. It's not a desire for esteem. Esteem is the result of having
Mm-hmm.
engaged with the community, right? And that doesn't, it doesn't account for things like personality disorders and people who have maladaptive coping patterns, right? And so that's like the hard part of a lot of this. It's not magic because some people they need a certain type of attention because they
Yeah.
don't have enough of it, and they kind of have a hole at the bottom of their cup, and what they want is not for you to fill their cup. What they want is the pouring. And so
Yeah.
kind of fix the bottom of the cup because then someone might stop pouring, and what they want is the pouring. But they're fine to have people pour all of the water out into their cup so they get the pouring.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of a hard part about doing this type of work is you have to find, am I enabling somebody or am I empowering them?
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to see what and predict what's going to happen when you open the box, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, how do you have something built to contain the damage if when you open the box somebody's like, no, I just want the pouring? And
I think
so
the biggest criticism of the TV show was the fact that like that's all they wanted to talk about. That's all that they focused on. It's like so
the
much other stuff
people who
happened
have a
besides.
personality disorder that's causing the most chaos.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There
I
was so much other stuff going on, you know.
I know, and that's like the most inspiring and cool stuff. And I often don't capture those things on camera either. But it's also like, yeah, the drama is a big part of it, and like it's the thing that makes the story, I guess. And you know, um, you do not stand out on television if you do not have a personality disorder
It's true.
in a reality show situation.
Especially reality, right? They're seeking the friction, the drama, not
That's
coalition and co-allegiance. I feel like that would be a boring show. That, or then the show becomes trying to get everyone to do that, and the antagonist or the conflict is against the show's paradigm in the first place, right? That's, yeah. I think and I'm of the mentality that like that pouring, that attention that's required, right? Like that's an end space of, some people might look at that and use that as a reason to not contribute because that's like an inevitability. But I just firmly believe that materially there'll be less of those kinds of people as well, because some of their reasons or developments that have those symptoms of the overproduction or over need of attention is caused by a insecurity of food, water, shelter, education, and medicine. Like,
No,
they,
no.
no,
you don't think so? You think some people are
no.
like that regardless?
Yeah.
No, it's not. Yeah, sorry. I mean, I wish, but
But
we have created those situations,
I
and
think there'd be less of them. I think people like that
these are
exist,
but
no doubt. But
these are the kinds of things that all groups of people have always had to deal with, and like we
mm-hmm.
just lack the level of how separated we are from each other and from groups and from community and from like ancestral wisdom about these like simple things that like everybody has always had to deal with is
Yeah,
the reason that it seems like a problem, right? Like, like I always think back to, and my friend group and I frequently talk about, there's this one particular thing where a bunch of us were at the garden in Tennessee, and there was some big gathering happening, and there was this one person there who like came in with this like minivan, and every single inch of the minivan is sharpied with conspiracy theories. Like
Oh,
it
okay.
is like, oh great, like this is gonna be fun, right? And this person just like every time we have like group meals, right? Every day, everybody's eat
Mhm.
like they come together, eat a big meal, everyone comes together and chats and stuff. This person constantly trying to throw out like, but the world is flat, but like the lizard people, but like and everybody just completely ignore them. You
Yeah.
know, maybe
That's a
occasionally
lack
one
of
person's
education to
like,
me, but I get what you mean. That's like,
it's more than that. Okay, it's not about education. That has nothing to do with education, right?
Oh,
And you're not gonna fix that. Like this person is on a whole journey of their own.
yeah,
That at the moment that you've decided to sharpie up every inch of the outside of your minivan and conspiracy theories,
fundamental. I mean, medicine might be the better argument on that
yeah,
one, but
this
like,
of schizotypal narcissist,
yeah,
yeah,
the type of like, it's where you have
it is
schizotype.
trauma. Yeah, someone said trauma.
Actually, you can totally just medicate schizotypal down to a manageable level where you're just seeing less patterns and everything. And then there's the narcissist element of that. And that's where you get the like, I have to take over every conversation about the lizard people. And I cannot be reasoned with because the point is to have secret knowledge that other people don't have because of
An
how,
in group. Yeah.
and that person is very difficult to get to stop doing those things. But if you accept that person as just, hey, we're not gonna, and no one gives them the attention that they are trying to
Mhm.
get from that, it can help with the narcissism, like help stop lighting that part of their brain up
Yeah.
and giving the reward to it, and it can kind of
Because
calm.
some of it might be unintentional, right? Like I don't assume,
Yeah, at some point it's a compulsion, and it's like
yeah, or a reflex.
yeah, and they need something. And a lot of times it is like driven by like I need help, and I know that the reason I need help is because I have this weirdness in my brain. And so I'm shouting the weirdness as loud as possible to kind of engage other people's like parent drive.
yeah.
Hmm.
But
And
also,
that's
I think like we have to consider that when you have a Dunbar-sized group of people, right? Like humans evolved to live in groups of like 30 to 50 and occasionally up to 150 when two or three of these groups come together. This is how human brains evolved to function. And there are so many things, there are so many personality types that that occur with a frequency of about one person in a group that size
Mhm.
and like across populations. And it tells you that like there's some reason that we have that. Like there's some role that that serves in groups. And
Mhm.
like we have this hyper saturation of information and stuff today, and like we're in this like a toxic soup of industrial pollution, and it's all like times 100. But like there's some reason that these things are there. There's some function that it serves to have the, a lot of cultures, uh, like like reify
This,
uh the
yeah,
jester, like the person who says the crazy thing, and the like, what about the lizard people? It's like,
yeah.
okay,
And
Carol, like,
right. But
like
it's
you,
a lot of metaphors and patterns that come out, and it's like,
yeah,
oh, this person's thinking in their like hyper capitalist, like me
How
brain.
do I fix it? Right? Yeah. Like
Person is over,
instead of observing it or
and it's like,
creating a space for it, it's what's wrong with it, right? Like what? How do I resolve this? How do I eliminate this kind of? I mean, there's phrases for it in like I think the Maori language has a term for neurodivergents who are autistic, which directly translates to like in their own space and time, which
yeah,
is just like it was a generalized concept of like some people are like this. I mean, non-binary. Like I grew up in a primarily Indian culture, as an Indian from India, and the concept of non-binary and like more than two genders was just integrated. Like it was something we have
yeah,
names for the kinds of people who have like no particular identifiable features that are masculine or feminine. There's people that have no genitals, extra genitals, things like that. Like that was just like
yeah.
integrated in the concept of how people were.
And you
And I
look at
think,
what those people are doing in the world today. Like we have
yeah,
the largest Hijra population in the world is in San Francisco
okay,
today,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they're throwing really cool parties that are like very political, like fuck Hindu, fuck like
Yeah,
ethnic
yeah, yeah,
nationalism. Like these people are coming to exterminate you too when they find something they don't like about you.
yeah.
Like those people become like the voice of the future of like this is the problem that you don't see yet because we're already experiencing it.
The canaries, 100%.
Yeah, totally. The Hydra are like such an incredible and amazing
I'm
group
really
of
glad you know
people.
that. Yeah, I don't know if any of you've seen Monkey Man. Dev Patel was in it recently, but there's a brief representation of that population directly. He's actually gets like a therapy and spiritual guidance from an individual specifically of that tribe. And that was something that like even when I was a kid, when I'd visit my family in India, like that was I didn't find it like the whole idea that there's like this sexualization or this concept of corruption of ideas or gender roles is based on a like projected fear of the people who say that. Because for me as a kid, I didn't think past, oh, like that person goes with he him pronouns, but he's wearing a sari and has makeup. I don't care. Like it didn't. I was like, oh, you could do that. I guess it didn't. There was no social or learned discrimination of how to interpret that. It was just there. It was without judgment. And I think
Yeah,
that's to me is like the concept of egalitarian intersection of people
You
is they
turn
just are.
into something, well, manhood into something you attain, and femininity it's something that you fall into.
Yeah, it's
So it's
patriarchal pressure, right? Like
right. But then there's sort of still the hierarchy of the feminine, the high fem, and then the
mhm,
undesirable feminine, and so like that's like also a patriarchy thing. And
yeah,
the thing is you fall into the worst, the hardest camp, the undesirable feminine, because that is the worst possible thing you could be,
yeah,
like undesirable to men, and it's just like, oh
like
great.
sex workers too, and how they're like
Yeah,
discriminated against as if prostitution isn't literally the oldest occupation of human history. Like
right.
literally the first one we have in recorded human interaction was that, and I'm like, it's the oldest job, so to speak.
Yeah.
And treating it as this like puritanical aspect is one of projection, like it's going to exist with or without it. So should we enshrine and enable safety for this? And that's my mentality with all those things, is that like just because you don't like it doesn't mean it shouldn't have a space to be done safely and appropriately in a manner that we can
It's
engage with in a healthy way.
not, that you just lay there. Like, there's skill to it. There's a whole dance. You can read many
Yeah.
cultures. It's extremely, extremely difficult and had a whole thing about it. And I mean, it can become exploitative, just like everything can be exploitative.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, it's up to society to not demonize it. Otherwise, that way lies exploitation.
Yeah. It enables the exploitation by saying it shouldn't be a thing. It's like
Hmm.
you don't stop that occupation, you don't stop that intersection of how people choose to materially provide for themselves, as well as like I know I've met women who like sex work. Like one of the problems they've had to deal with socially was they had to deal with the fact that people are like, oh, I'm sorry you have to do that. They're like,
And they're like, oh,
why? Like I got into it because I'm good at it and I like it and I
mhm.
follow things safely. And I was like, I never considered that like this is something you'd be like past the framework of what usually causes the discrimination and the trafficking, because there's a lot of association with that.
Out
That
of it.
just the idea of it, you could do that and contribute to it in a positive way. You wanted to, and I was like, oh yeah,
also
like it's a
there's
set
a
of people
good
I didn't
deal
think
of
about.
power in that.
Yeah,
I've been
Yes.
putting these
absolutely.
crystals, these like smoky quartz crystals in the orgies because I'm starting the world's largest orgies for like 8 years.
You're
So
talking about
I was I calculated probably like about 200,000 orgasms worth of psychic energy in the crystals.
a
And
lot.
I did like when they were having the confirmation hearing on Matt Gates, we did a live stream where I put like a curse on him from the orgasm crystals. And 3 days later, he's like out of a job, out of Congress, out of, like everything, and like he hasn't come back. And it's like, well, you
Geo
know,
crystals are real.
I basically banned all 200,000 of those orgasms.
I stayed on way longer
a
than I need
portion of
to.
them, a portion of them.
I've skipped
There's
it, of
still more
course.
in there.
We don't always know how to get
The inevitability of the topics we talk about. I
Speaking
love
of orgies, I gotta go
it.
prep for burning man.
Everyone in my comments right now is like, what did I walk into? I don't know. We just do this, and it started
Orgasm
cybersecurity, but it's
crystals,
always Yeah,
There was
orgasms
this
are
guy who
cybersecurity.
built a whole
Just
intentional
things we ended
community.
up with, like
This
Okay.
there was a whole intentional community built around like harnessing the power of orgasm energy
Yeah.
to build weapons. Like, and they were like talking about shooting down military satellites with orgasm energy and stuff. He did get arrested and committed after that, but the community is still there, and you can actually go see the cannons they were building. They called them Cloudbusters.
Wait, this is MK Ultra?
No, it's Wilhelm Reich.
Oh. Oh. You should link me in the signal for that. But I want to hear more about this. Yeah,
He
we
was
should.
building the orgasm cannons.
My God. This is an amazing topic to end on. I have to head out, but I want to talk more about, maybe topics like this too next week. I'm locked in for next week as well.
Right,
Hopefully
well,
we can
I'm
get
out,
Comrade
but
in.
they'll be
So
on the desert. But I
that's
mean,
true.
maybe I'll dial in from we're doing builds, so it's
I
like
would love to see that. If you could pop in while in the
if
desert,
I
that'd be
can.
great. Otherwise, I mean,
Yeah,
update me
like
regardless. But
it'd be a sandstorm. That is it. We're here.
it's sanding sideways. That's it. That's all you got to say, and then hang up, and then we're all good. We know you're good.
Everything. That's
Well, have fun. I'll keep in touch, and good chatting, y'all. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
and thank you for everyone who joined in.
yeah. Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.
Good
See
time.
you.
All right. I'll see you in the future.
See y'all later.
Bye.